Matthew, you doing all right tonight?
I'm doing wonderful.
Okay, whatever. We got a show to do. I want to talk about how Colorado is being covered. We're going to recap some of the freshman classes. Is that right? I see that on the show sheet. And I'm going to listen to you talk about the bowl game slate this weekend and act like I know what I'm talking about. We're going to do all of that here. Let's hit the stinger first, Matthew. Felix Sharpe here at Sharpe Review on Twitter. Matthew Bruening there. See, I did it right this time. Going the right way. At Sports Fanatic MB. We're both for CampusToCanton.com. If you haven't already, check out the website. You can find it at CampusToCanton.com. We're trying to get to 3,000 subscribers here before the end of the year. Very ambitious goal. We got 10 days left. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Help us get to that mark. Matthew, before we do that, or before we get to anything else, let's talk about Devin Brown, who's going to be starting for – and I'm going to acknowledge the intro to this show was just a little bit off. We're going to get better at this. I promise. I promise. Devin Brown, who is going to get the start in the bowl game for Ohio State. I saw some discussion about him on Twitter, about he's worse than Kyle McCord. And I want to talk a little bit about him. So a four-star coming out of that 2022 class. Who is this guy? Downfield gunslinger. Averaged over 19 yards per attempt at Corner Canyon, the same school that produced Zach Wilson and Jackson Dart. We look at how he was used by Ryan Day this year. Kind of like a Tim Tebow, let's get him in there and run like sweeps and QB dive. Yeah. Can he run? Yes. But you're talking about a guy who's damn near threw for 5,000 yards his last year at Corner Canyon, averaged over 19 yards per attempt. He is a gunslinger. I don't think that we can draw conclusions yet on what Devin Brown is. I had him as the number one quarterback in the class above a Drew Aller. I think that he has similar arm talent to Drew Aller, the ability to be aggressive downfield. But we can't draw conclusions just yet. Did we see him earlier in the season? Yes, we did. But come on, man. Kyle McCord was the starter. He was probably getting 95 or 99% of the snaps in practice. Now we're going to get to see him with a, full month of starting reps with the ones. Don't draw conclusions just yet on Devin Brown, either for this game or for his career. He could still put it all together because he has the physical tools and he has the skill set.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that Devin Brown, excuse me.
Oh, my goodness.
I know, it's bad. I do know that I do believe that he's going to be a good quarterback. My biggest fear with Brown, this is going to be a bad show, is you mentioned that he is a gunslinger, which I agree with. Ryan Day doesn't want that in his offense, though, and that's what I'm worried about, is that he will not let Devin Brown play the way Devin Brown wants to and needs to play. He wants everything within that structure. I do think we're going to get a good idea of how good Devin Brown can be. As you mentioned, he's got a month to practice with this team and get going, and they are playing a pretty good pass defense. Missouri's defense last year against the pass was 40th. Against the rush, 25th, 29th overall. It's a pretty good defense. They have most of their defensive players coming back, and it looks like Ohio State's going to get most of their weapons. Travion Henderson has been practicing all week with the team. Has Emeka Egbuka. Has actually JT Tumalo out, which I was kind of surprised about. So those guys are practicing. I think Ohio State, outside of probably Marvin Harrison, is going to be bringing almost their full team. So we're going to get a real look at Devin Brown because I think Ryan Day wants to go out there and win this game, as does Missouri. It's going to be a fun game to watch. I don't see how he's not the guy right now. And I agree with you. We shouldn't make judgments on him and the little that he was used, because it's not like he even got that opportunity that like Kyle McCord got as a freshman against Akron and getting into an actual game. As you mentioned, they bring him in there and using him as a runner. That's not his game. Like he's a good athlete. He's a better athlete than Kyle McCord, but that's not his game. So I think this is definitely going to be the one or the game to really look at and see what we're possibly going to get in the 2024 season.
Okay, drop a like on this video for Matthew and his voice and how rough this intro was. Listen, we're a little rough around the edges. We'll get better as probably not. We'll probably won't get better as we go along. I like that Ryan Day's hand has been forced here because he has to give Devin Brown this opportunity. You know, could we go into the spring and Lincoln Kineholz is right there with Devin Brown for the job? Yes, but if we look at Ryan Day's history, he's always preferred the guy with more time in the system. It was C.J. Stroud starting over Kyle McCord starting over Devin Brown, and now Devin Brown's going to start the bowl game. At least as far as I can tell, it's not going to be Lincoln Kineholz. So going into the spring, I would give Devin Brown the edge. But if you have Devin Brown or Lincoln Kineholz rostered, you got a big value jump because Kyle McCord left. And as far as I can tell, Dante Moore signed with Oregon. Cam Ward looks like he's going to end up in Florida, either at Miami or Florida State. So Ohio State has this, maybe a little bit of a hole at the quarterback position, and it could be filled in-house by either Devin Brown or Lincoln Kineholz. Could this be a Quinn Ewers, Malik Murphy situation where Malik Murphy got the opportunity and then really didn't outplay Quinn Ewers? Sure, it could be that, but I wouldn't write Devin Brown. I was in the draft, Matthew, and you know this.
Yeah,
I took Devin Brown ahead of Quinn Ewers.
Yeah,
I took Devin Brown at the 101 over Quinn Ewers. That's how much I believed in him. I still have he's a top 20 quarterback for me, even with everything that's happened in that room. I still have him as a top 20 quarterback because we haven't seen him. Yeah. We haven't seen him. We're going to get they play Missouri.
Yeah, Missouri. Here in Texas. I'm debating on going to the game. It's at the Cotton Bowl.
Let me know in the comments if you are writing out Devin Brown just yet. I see, let's see, Dogs Dosey. He says, any chance you guys can help a guy out for Christmas? It's football related. Let us know what question you have, sure, and we'll help you out.
What I will say really quick, I really felt bad for Kyle McCord last night. He didn't look like he was enjoying himself when Syracuse just got waxed. It was, I don't know if anybody knows he was on the sideline. They were talking about him like the whole game, and they just kept showing pictures of him on the sideline. He was, not looking happy.
Kyle McCord, a friend of the show. You still have his number, right?
I do, yes.
Let's call him. Call him right now.
You want me to?
Call him right now.
Right now.
Call him right now. No, I'm just joking. Okay. All right. You wanted to talk about Mike Denbrock, or did I want to talk about it, or do you want to talk about Mike Denbrock and him being named the offensive coordinator at Notre Dame? Pair him with Riley Leonard. What do you think the impact is going to be there? I just want to hear your voice. Go ahead.
I think it's actually going to be interesting. I think many people know I'm not the biggest Riley Leonard fan. I have some tweets bookmarked about his supposed value over certain players, but I do think bringing in a guy like Mike Denbrock is actually a massive win for Riley Leonard, at least when it comes to the CFF value. If you go back, I just had to throw this out there, Grand Valley State, I don't know if you knew that he was the offensive coordinator and quarterback coach back in 92, 95. I assume that's why you got your championship rings on. But if you go back and look at what he was able to do at Notre Dame in 2014, I mean, I forgot Everett Golston was actually pretty good for them. 60% completion percentage, over 3,000 passing yards, 29-14 touchdown to interception ratio. But the metrics, pass success rate, 45%, pass explosiveness, 1.6, pass in neutral situations, 48%, all of those way above our neutral line. Then he goes to Cincinnati, and this is the big one that I want to talk about. This Cincinnati, Desmond Ridder, and LSU, Jaden Daniels, what he was able to do with them. Desmond Ridder, what has he been known for? He's an athletic quarterback, strong arm, but not accurate at all. Over those couple years that he was at Cincinnati from 2017 to 2021, 40 to 50% success rate, 1.7 pass explosiveness, a 40 to 55% pass in neutral situations. It was actually 50 and 55 the last 2 years of Desmond Ridder. And this is the key thing for fantasy. In 2018, 23.6 points per game, which was actually, I messed that up. It was QB 25. In 2019, 22.6 per game, QB 20. In 2020, 34 points per game, QB 10 for fantasy. It's pretty good stats for a quarterback who ended up being a third-round draft pick, okay? Then you go to LSU. For those of you who may not remember, Jaden Daniels' teammates were laughing him out the door when he left ASU. They raided his locker.
They took his stuff out of his locker.
Yeah, I mean, they raided his locker. There was some very colorful language used, and they talked about how bad he was. He goes to LSU. In his first year, he averaged 28.5 points per game in Mike Denbrock's offense, finished QB 10. He was injured that year as well. In that offense, 50% pass success rate, 1.4 pass explosiveness, 44% passing in neutral situations, average 4 points EPA per play.
I went to public school. Are those good numbers?
Those are very good numbers. I would suggest, as Felix mentioned at the beginning of the show, go to campuscanton.com. Get yourself the lowest membership. Check out the coach tendencies. We got a nice little line that tells you average coaches, all of these way above the line. Then we go to this last year where, again, Jayden Daniels won the Heisman. There was not one person at this network who thought Jayden Daniels going to LSU was going to win the Heisman. Not one person. Not anybody in college. I don't even want to just say this. Nobody in college expected Jayden Daniels to go out there and do what he did last year. And a lot of that, I think, is because of Mike Denbrock. 49.3 points a game. QB won by a wide margin last year. 55% success rate, 46% pass in neutral situations. Going to Notre Dame, I get it. Look, I don't think Riley Leonard's going to end up being like a second-round draft pick. I don't think he's got the passing chops to do that. But his completion percentage coming into this year in the 50s and then 60% is right in line with what Desmond Ritter's was. And Jayden Daniels was actually worse coming into LSU. But Mike Denbrock does that heavy RPO system. We know Riley Leonard's a good rushing quarterback. They stretch the field with their wide receivers, and I think they're going to be able to do that. Chris Mitchell, look, if he's able to make that translation from G5 to P5, is going to be a fun player for them. I have my questions about Bo Collins. I don't think he's that good. We saw what Jaden Greathouse was able to do, and where he thrived in high school was in the slot. Bringing in Bo Collins and Chris Mitchell forces Jaden Greathouse back into the slot. So I think this offense is going to be really good for Notre Dame. They have a chance to make the 12-team playoff. And for fantasy and CFF purposes, I actually think this is a massive win for Riley Leonard. I still don't think he gets drafted day 2. He might get drafted day 2. It might be a round 3 pick. I don't think he's going to be a round 2 guy because I don't think the passing chops are there. But I do think bringing Mike Denbrock back, just with what he was able to do with the Desmond Ridder and Jayden Daniels, I think you should be excited about Riley Leonard in 2024.
All right, I don't know how you're going to be excited about Riley Leonard. I'm looking at their stats. They lost Rico Flores Jr. to the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Chris Tyree to the transfer portal.
Yep.
Rico Flores was their leading receiver as far as receptions. Chris Tyree was second. They lost Holden Stays, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
He was their second leading tight end. They keep Mitchell Evans. Oh, I'm sorry. Tobias Merriweather is already signed with what?
Cal.
To Cal. They're losing a lot there. Yes, they retained Jaden Greathouse, who we, like. To a certain extent. Mitchell Evans, you would expect to be heavily involved in the offense. I can't stop saying this name, Matthew, because the name that I don't want to forget at Notre Dame is Eli Raritan, who for me, was one of the more physical tight ends in the 2022 class, I believe. This is the second year at Notre Dame. Now he's dealt with season-ending injuries at his senior year in high school and then his freshman year at Notre Dame. But one of the more physical players in college football, if healthy, he's really exciting to me. I really like Eli Raritan. I have no idea who Riley Leonard is going to throw the ball. They might just do what Syracuse did the other night, just run the wing tee and just, quarterback dives all over the place.
Look, like I said, say what you want about Bo Collins and Chris Mitchell. They bring both those guys in the transfer portal. Chris Mitchell had a pretty good year last year. Again, FIU, G5. Take that for what it's worth. It is hard for sometimes for these guys to transfer up and do good. 64 receptions, 1,118 yards, 7 touchdowns. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of Bo Collins. I do think Jaden Greathouse is going to be good. But here's the thing. They're not losing that much on the offensive line. Last year, they were a top 30 offensive line in pass blocking, top 30 in rushing as well. Riley Leonard's going to give them that added dynamic. They had actually a pretty good signing day with multiple 4-star high-end offensive tackles. They're bringing in a couple wide receivers. I don't think that he's going to have Jayden Daniels type season, because look at the wide receivers Jayden Daniels had. But let's talk Desmond Ridder. Who did Desmond Ridder have? Alec Pierce? He was a
Alec Pierce is a good player. Do not defame the name of Alec Pierce.
He's a good player. He's probably I'll say he's better. I actually kind of like Alec Pierce. He's better than
Trey Tucker also? Did he have Trey Tucker?
He did, but Trey Tucker did nothing because they never used him.
Oh, okay.
They had someone else too, but I can't remember who it was. I don't think that Bo Collins and Chris Mitchell and Jaden Greathouse are that big of a step down from a Trey Tucker and and now I just forgot his name, Alec Pierce. It's a massive step down from Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, yes, but it's not that big a step down from what they were able to do with Desmond Ridder. And let's be honest, Notre Dame doesn't play a ton of powerhouses either. Clemson, I don't really know the rest of their 2024 schedule. I know they have Clemson on there, but I don't think that they play a lot of other big teams. I think Riley Leonard's going to have a fun fantasy season. I really do.
Where did Mike Denbrock coach in the 90s? Where?
Grand Valley State.
Oh,
yeah.
Grand Valley,
right there.
Grand Valley State. What a coincidence!
I know.
What a coincidence! Grand Valley State. That's crazy. Mike, I didn't realize that. I honestly did not know that. I did not know that until you put it on this show.
I didn't know it either. And then I saw it. It's like, oh, I got to throw that in there. I just have to.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about Colorado. Because Jordan Seaton, who I think is going to play guard at the next level, signs with Colorado. Now, there had been some trepidation about whether or not he actually would sign with Colorado because he went on the news and talked about being a dog and he put on the hat and everything. But then he didn't sign on National Signing Day. So I don't know what happened between, Wednesday and today, but he is signed. But it just leads me to want to talk about Colorado's class overall and how that team is covered. So they get 6 high school recruits, 6, including Seaton, 6 high school recruits. If you just look at the high school recruits, that's the number 99 ranked class in the country. And I've noticed that whether or not you like Deion Sanders, that plays a lot into the coverage because that family, not just him, Shedeur and Deion Jr., they've made a lot of enemies with legacy media. Not only have they made a lot of enemies directly, but even this is a American culture that kind of emphasizes modesty, and they don't stand for modesty there in Colorado. Deion never has. Show me the money. I mean, he had a music video, when he was 22, 23 years old, coming right out of college. 99th ranked class if you just consider the high school recruits. But you don't just consider the high school recruits. They bring in the transfer class, which was the number 1 ranked class, even above Ole Miss. Ole Miss brought in who's the wide receiver from South Carolina? Juice Wells. Yeah. They brought in Walter Nolan. I mean, they got some heavy hitters there. And Colorado is the number 1 ranked class. So when you combine them together, we're talking about the number 21 ranked class in the country. Now, if you want to nitpick those individual prospects and say, okay, the linemen that they brought in, they're not actually that good, that's fine. But when you look at the big picture, he's brought in the number 21 ranked class 2 years in a row now. The year prior, before Coach Prime, they were ranked number 58. And I just think it's interesting. When we have a phenomenon, it could be Deion Sanders, it could be Tim Tebow, it could be Jeremy Lin outside of sports, even outside of football, Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese in women's basketball. For some reason, these people that we've seen only for the first time, they invoke the most primal, primitive, tribal instincts in us, where there's this line of demarcation and you are either with us or against us. And your coverage, if you're in the media, or your perception, if you're in the audience, is filtered through whether or not you feel like a member of that tribe. And I just think that like Coach Prime is just an interesting study in human behavior because he absolutely invokes those primal tribal Tim Tebow was another example. Like if you were an evangelical Christian, you had one perception about Tim Tebow as opposed to being outside of that community. I don't know if that's too deep for this show, Matthew, but I just think that the coverage of Coach Prime and what they're doing is just so interesting from a perception of human behavior.
I mean, I think it just goes to us as human beings. You said that line of demarcation. It's either you support them because you think they're the underdog and you want to see that, or you just want to see them fail. Or when they start to see too much success, which I think is what happened to Colorado this year. Once they started out 3-0, which nobody expected, then everybody wanted to see them fail. Because once you get too high, that's what a lot of people want to do. They don't want to see you to continue to succeed. Same thing we saw with Caitlin Clark. We've seen a lot of that with Angel Reese this year, with after winning the national championship and then not being on the team for a little bit. For anybody who's following that stuff, like, that's America, man. People love to see you fail. They like to boost you up, then they love to see you fall back.
If you are not in that tribe, they want to see you fail.
Yeah,
but obviously, you don't see a whole lot of people that look like me that are criticizing Angel Reese or Deion Sanders. It's just how it goes. We resort to those primitive tribal instincts. Yeah. and we should mention, as far as Colorado goes, there are some players on this team that are going to have a fantasy impact in 2024. Cordell Russell might. Now, I think that Cordell Russell, Under Armour All-American last year for TCU, I think they call him Baby T.O. He's not as refined. Like, he's somebody who's recently been playing football, but like just a 99th percentile athlete who doesn't have the refined skills yet. He could. Will Shepherd out of Vanderbilt. He is absolutely refined. He's going to be a fifth-year player there for Colorado. He could put up some numbers, the same numbers that Xavier Weaver put up last year. He could fill that role. And then a little known tight end prospect that we've been talking about for a while is Shimon Madier out of your aforementioned Cincinnati team. We liked him also at Cincinnati. Never really got like the full-time role. Should get that at Colorado. All three of these guys, if the offense stays similar to what it was under Sean Lewis, that's no guarantee, but they're going to be passing a lot, and these guys could have an impact in our format, Matthew.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't even mention, obviously not a transfer, but Dylan Edwards has a chance to be really explosive in that offense as well. I mean, it could be a very fun offense next year. And moving to the Big 12 where, say what you want, they don't really play that much defense, and losing like a team like Oklahoma and Texas, I think Colorado does have a chance to be a really fun team. The only fear I have with them, because you mentioned a lot of that has come from the transfer portal, is will that continue? Because I do think a lot of schools really need to build through recruiting, and Deion didn't have an incredibly bad class last year. Obviously only signed the 6 players this year. We've seen Mike Norvell's been able to do it for the past couple of years. His classes have been heavily portal related, but this year he started to switch more into getting those recruiting classes. I do think if Deion wants to see continued success at Colorado, they've got to start getting, doesn't have to be top 10 recruiting classes, but I do think that they need to increase their recruiting classes to be able to continue that success. Because I don't know that we'll see these teams, I don't know that we'll continue to see this many great players in the portal. I think that's still leveling out a little bit.
Nora, I got this shirt.
I would assume when you played there.
Well, I think I got this shirt at the game. I think it was at the men's basketball game when they were doing a whole either T-shirt cannon thing or throwing them out into the audience. And got this shirt. Shout out to LJ and Bean. They were 2 of the star basketball players when I was there. They'll never see this. But Bean, LJ, they were my neighbors once.
Small world.
If y'all see this, shout out to you. Okay. We talked about Colorado. All right. You want to do a recap of what the recruiting classes?
Yeah, I mean, early signing day kind of ended today, or a lot of the recruits had to finish getting their stuff in. Obviously, we still have till February to finish these classes up, which we could see a major shakeup between 2 schools, which I'll talk about. So Georgia, for the second year in a row, finished with the number 1 class, or second time in 3 years, the number 1 class. 4 5 stars, 24 stars, really good class for them. Alabama, I think, finishing second is one of the more quieted things people are not talking about. I mean, Nick Saban just continues to do it. An incredible class that he landed, 3 5 stars, 17 4 stars. The surprising one to me, Miami. Now, we knew Mario Cristobal has always been a great recruiter. He was really good at that at Oregon. We haven't quite seen that success translate onto the field yet at Miami. Maybe give it another year or so.
And we knew that Mario Cristobal would be a great recruiter, and that's proved itself as far as class rankings.
Yeah, and I mean, they flipped a great defensive lineman from Ohio State to Miami. It was a big win for them. It actually helped them jump Ohio State and a couple of the players that they lost. Number 4 is Ohio State.
They may still get Cam Ward, too. Yeah. Like Cam Ward is there for Florida State or Miami. It's going to be one of those 2.
It seems like a lot of the reports are that he's leaning more toward Miami than he is Florida State. I think what the reports sound like is that whichever way Cam Ward goes, DJU's going the other. So I think either school's going to get one of those guys. So they're both going to get transfer portal quarterbacks. Ohio State, because of them getting kind of rated on signing day, dropped from the number 2 class to the number 4 class. Still 5 stars and 12 4 stars, so not a bad class. I think the big thing, obviously, them keeping Jeremiah Smith. It was kind of late into the night that he finally submitted his LOI. It sounded like Miami was making a real big push. If Miami would have got him, they might have almost jumped Alabama if Alabama would have lost the recruit, which we'll talk about in a minute. Number 5, Oregon. I mean, Dan Lanning is killing it on the recruiting trail. He did it last year, putting Oregon. I don't think they were top 5. I know they were top 10. But again, now getting up there at the number 5 class, going into the Big Ten, man, I think you could argue they're right there on par with Ohio State and Michigan. I don't think there's a massive separation between those 3 schools. So
if I was Jim Harbaugh or Ryan Day, I would be afraid of Dan Lanning because that dude is young. He's swaggy. He recruits well. Oregon is doing its thing, and obviously they have the backing of Nike.
Yeah, which definitely helps. Number 6, Texas. I mean, Sark, I think he's one of the best offensive coaches in the game. 3rd best class in the SEC and not much behind Alabama. Obviously, Georgia finished fairly well ahead of everybody. 7 was Auburn. This was a big one. 2 5-stars, 13 4-stars, but they have a chance to possibly flip Ryan Williams, who you did a video on the YouTube channel. He's the number 3 wide receiver in the class for, I believe, 24/7 Sports and On 3. He's our number 3 wide receiver, currently soft committed to Alabama. He cannot sign his LOI till February when he graduates. There's a lot of reports that he could flip to Auburn, and Auburn could land they're calling it the Freeze 5. These multiple.
I hate that, man. I hate when they find multiple wide receivers because they've got Cam Coleman,
and Perry Thompson. But Ryan
Williams,
he's the best out of all of them. And I really think Walker White has a chance to be a really exciting quarterback for them. I mean, we've seen what Hugh Freeze has been able to do with Malik Willis, and I don't remember, his name's jumped out of my head here. The Liberty quarterback last year.
Caden Salter? Did he coach Caden Salter?
I'm almost positive. Yeah, for 1 year, not this year. And then obviously you were excited about Robbie Ashford possibly doing something with Auburn because of what Hugh Freeze can do. Peyton Thornton wasn't horrible, and I don't think he's like a super exciting quarterback prospect. So Walker White has all the tools to be an NFL quarterback. He gets those 3 wide receivers. I mean, that would be a really fun thing. It would definitely jump Auburn up, and it would drop Alabama down out of the number 2 class. So it's something to watch in
Robbie Ashford, going to play wide receiver at the next level. Book it. He's still rosterable in C2C formats, but I wouldn't trade for him like I did.
Another interesting class, I think, Oklahoma coming in at 8th, the 5th best class in the SEC for Will Venables. Again, they lost a lot of their offensive linemen. They didn't bring a ton in the recruiting class, but 1 5-star, 18 4-stars. I think it's a big thing for them moving into the SEC to keep building those recruiting classes. Number 9, Florida State, Mike Norvell, as I mentioned, the past couple of years has killed it in the portal, has not kind of shifted to the recruiting. Didn't get any 5-stars. They were trying to make that push for Jeremiah Smith, but did get 15 4-stars. And then again, another surprising one for me, Notre Dame finishing in the top 10. And I think this is a big year for Marcus Freeman. They have not been as successful as I think Notre Dame fans have wanted them to be, especially after the loss of Brian Kelly, where I think you have to kind of level off your standards a little bit at Notre Dame, but Brian Kelly kind of set the standards high. And we thought Marcus Freeman was going to continue that, and he hasn't. So I'll be very curious to see what he ends up doing, but pretty big class for him. But I wanted to talk to you about 2 classes. Billy Napier in Florida got rated as well. Now, they ended up keeping the main guys in DJ Lagway, and I'm forgetting the other player's name. He was a very good LJ McCray, I think, a defensive lineman. Those were the 2 main guys, both 5-stars, really good players. He's able to keep both of them, which is a big thing. But I think he might be a lame duck head coach. I don't know that he's got a shot. We kind of have talked about it since the minute Florida hired him. We did not think that was a good thing. To be all the way down at 16, I don't think is a good thing. Especially
Billy Napier was hired right there with Josh Gaddis being the offensive coordinator at Miami. And we flamed both of those hires. And Billy Napier has just outlasted Josh Gaddis. Now, I think if you look at the 2022 season.
Yeah.
Me, that shows me the type of, with Anthony Richardson at the helm. There were games where Anthony Richardson had 1 and 2 designed carries. That's a coach who's bringing in his system and not catering what he does to the talent on his team, which to me is like a cardinal sin in coaching. Yeah. That offense was better this year. Offense was better this year with Graham Mertz at the helm. You've got Eugene Wilson there. We like Arliss Boardingham. I'm a big Arliss Boardingham fan. Now you add DJ Lagway. I don't know that it matters if Billy Napier is there in 2025. If you like DJ Lagway, because he's such like a physical specimen. You think it matters?
I do. He's he's talked a lot about the only reason I shouldn't say the only reason. The main reason he seemed to stay at Florida
was Billy Napier
was because of loyalty. Is what he said.
Well, it's loyalty to Florida, not Billy Napier.
I think it was more because of Billy Napier going in on him. It's kind of like what Aiden Childs has talked about with Jonathan Smith.
Pledges allegiance to Billy Napier.
Dude, so here's the thing. I just want to give you like who he lines up with, DJ Lagway. I think this is really going to excite you. That's why this is a big deal to me. I'll give you the crap names first. That's mean. I shouldn't say crap names. Jerry Bohannon and Craig Krenzel. He also matches up very heavily to Robbie Ashford and Lenoris Sellers. That's the kind of quarterback we are talking about here. If Billy Napier is fired, I do think there's a chance that DJ Lagway is like,
Craig Krenzel is such a different quarterback than those other three that you named.
But athletically, he matches up. Now, I know, I just wanted to throw him in there, Ohio State guy. But I do think there's a chance that he could leave Florida. I think a lot will depend on who Florida brings in and everything. But like, if Florida has another bad year, I don't know that DJ Lagway stays. So I do think it is something to watch out for with that. The other big one, this dude's killed it for years until making the move that he did, and that is Lincoln Riley going to USC. Finished with the number 18 recruiting class. Doesn't sound bad until you look at 0 5-stars, 11 4-stars total. Going into the Big Ten, I believe they were like the 7th or 8th best class in the Big Ten. Michigan's ahead of them. Penn State's ahead of them. Oregon, Ohio State.
Being ahead of you is a big deal.
Michigan finished top 15. Yeah. I mean, Wisconsin finished ahead of USC. Like, that is, I'm sorry. No, they finished right behind USC. Nebraska finished right there with USC. Granted, that some of that might be Dylan Raiola. I think I've been saying it for months. I think Lincoln Riley's on the hot seat. This is not good. He tried to flip DJ Lagway. Didn't work out. Maybe he'll end up getting him. I don't have that much faith in that bad offensive line. I don't think the defense is going to improve that much. Will Howard, I don't think is going to change anything for him. They just lost their 5-star quarterback in Malachi Nelson to the portal. What do they have? Zachariah Branch and Mekhi Lemon, who they're moving to defensive back now. So what? They have Zachariah Branch. That's it. I think you do have to be worried about USC and Lincoln Riley heading to the Big Ten.
We still like who are the two running backs? There's Peterson and I'm forgetting the other running backs.
The
two running backs from last year's class. We like Zachariah Branch. We like, who do they have?
I mean, I like Mekhi Lemon if he stays at wide receiver.
Mario Williams entered the transfer portal. Yeah. Brennan Rice is going to the NFL. Dorian Singer is still there. Quentin Joyner. We like Quentin Joyner. We like Quentin Joyner. We like Zachariah Branch.
Yeah, I mean, like, I like Mekhi Lemon.
Oh, I'm sorry, Deuce Robinson. I love me some Deuce Robinson.
You do love Deuce Robinson.
Mike Evans clone. A faster Mike Evans. I like Deuce Robinson. Get out of here. He's going to be the number one. Watch. He's going to be the number one.
Probably because Will Howard's going to be bad, so he's just going to dump it off as much as possible. Zachariah Branch is going to be running these go routes and never get the ball. That's what's going to happen.
Okay. Is that the wrap up on
that's it.
The recruiting class? Okay. If you're watching this video on Twitch or on Twitter or someplace other than YouTube, really encourage you to come to the YouTube page. So you can drop a like and subscribe to the channel. Independent brand, trying to get to 3,000 subscribers with 10 days left in the year. I don't know how that's going to happen, but we're trying to get there. Go ahead and subscribe to the video and like the video and subscribe to the channel. You know, for some reason, Matthew, these like C2C live videos have been rougher than, Debbie Debate. I don't know. Maybe it's because
we're so used to Debbie Debate though. It's the same stuff over and over again. We're just getting into this.
It's still it's new. Listen, we're trying here. Yeah. We're trying here. All right, Matthew, I'm going to let you talk while talk about the bowls this weekend, because I'm going to act like I know what you're talking about, and I'm going to make a pick here as you go along.
We're only going to talk about a few of them again. These are courtesy of our good friend Chris Moxley, betting guru. And I'm going to just try not to lose my voice here because it's getting ready to go. We got the first one we're talking about is Troy versus Duke in the Birmingham Bowl. So Chris said play Troy at 6.5. Duke opt-outs too numerous with all the coaches leaving as well. It's a huge motivation question. Missing 8 starting players, including their 2 top offensive linemen. Troy only had 2 key opt-outs. Their entire offensive line is back. So play Troy at 6.5 if you can find it. This one I'm actually kind of excited about. James Madison versus Air Force in the Armed Forces Bowl. I was actually going to try and go to this game, but yeah, I'm not going. Play Air Force money line if you can wait until the Larrier news if he's going to play or not. Air Force injury concerns with quarterback Zach Larrier loom large with Troy Calhoun. Unfortunately, always lies. It's one of those things. Unlike the NFL, college coaches do not have to tell us the truth when it comes to injuries. James Madison's 2 best edge rushers are out of the game in Jalen Green and Mekhi Kamara. Motivation for the Bulldogs. Lots of players in the portal, but playing prop if, again, Zach Larrier plays, take the over on his 47.5 rushing yards. Next up, another good game on the weekend, Georgia Southern versus Utah State. We have got play Utah State at 1.5. Georgia State injuries and opt-outs, missing four of the 5 offensive linemen. Robert Lewis, their RB1. Marcus Carroll, their RB1. I'm sorry, Robert Lewis, their wide receiver 1. And their top 2 corners. Levi Williams, final game before becoming a Navy SEAL, which is actually a pretty cool story. And Utah State is missing the only impact player, their starting safety. Prop play running back Freddie Brox over on the 60.5 rush yards. Utah State is bottom 3 in the rushing grade, and Georgia State, even down linemen, should be featuring Brock. And the last game that we are going to talk about is Coastal Carolina versus San Jose State. Play San Jose State under 8.5. Any number under 10 is fine with Chris Moxley. As you can see, the line right now is set at 9, so they're really expecting San Jose State. Home type game for San Jose State with a lot of their players playing or coming from Hawaii, including their quarterback, Chevin Cordero. So the effort's going to be there. Coastal has 20 players in the portal. Defense is missing 2 of the best players, and McCall out with Jared Brown also out. So those are some of the big bowl games this weekend. We'll get a bunch of really good games this week as well, but we'll talk about those later in the week for some other Campus to Canton live shows.
Okay, before we get out of here, we got this question from Dogsy in the chat. Now, I'm going to reform it. He says he just moved to LA for work from the UK, and they got me going to college over here. I want to get involved. Went to a Rams game the other day with my girlfriend's brother. Didn't have a clue what was going on. I used to play rugby back home. Any place for me in football. All right, I'm going to ask this question this way, Matthew. Yeah. If you were going to someone who is new to football, new to college football, which player in California would you tell them to watch or track? And I've got a couple of answers here, so I can go first if you want.
Yeah, go ahead. You go first, because the one I would have gone to first, the 2 I would have gone to first, both transferred out, which would have been Dante Moore and Malachi Nelson. So
Dante Moore would have been a good answer. I will give you a coach there, Dogsy. So I'm going to tell you to pay attention to Sean Lewis, who is the head coach at San Diego State now. They run an up-tempo offense that's fast-paced. It's fun. He was formerly the offensive coordinator at Colorado, which was a phenomenon here in the U.S. before they flamed out. But Sean Lewis is now the offensive coordinator at the head coach at San Diego State. That's going to be a program here in year 1 or year 2 that's going to be fun to watch. So I would track him to see if he can build that program. The other player that I would watch is Deuce Robinson. Deuce Robinson is a 6'6", 225-pound wide receiver. So he catches. It's funny, like explaining this to somebody who doesn't have a history with football. But he's a 6'6", 225-pound wide receiver who catches the football. He could have played tight end. We thought he was going to play tight end. He actually converted to a full-time wide receiver. I think that he's just really explosive for his size. Other people around this company think that I'm off my rocker and that he's, doesn't have the skill set specifically for the wide receiver position. I think he's number 19 for USC. I didn't even say what school he played for. He plays for USC. I think he's number 19, but his name is Deuce Robinson, big, tall guy. And he reminds me a little bit of Mike Evans, who's going to be a Hall of Fame wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So pay attention to Sean Lewis. Pay attention to Deuce Robinson.
Yeah, Deuce Robinson is number 19. I'm actually going to go a state over because I think a more fun team to watch next year will be Arizona. You guys will be out in the same time zone. You'll have Noah Fafita with Tedero McMillan already this year, but then coming in next year, DeMond Williams and possibly Aaron Butler, who we love.
I said California. You're talking about
Arizona.
know,
but I said I want to go over. I want to go over a state because I think they're going to be more fun to watch. Deuce Robinson's probably the one. Zachariah Branch. I mean, I don't think anybody else is really going to be interesting. I don't think UCLA is going to be that interesting either. So, as for go ahead. NFL side, the most prominent rugby player is probably Jordan Mailata, who is
you go ahead. Keep saying no. I'm just posting comments, man.
What I was going to say is, if you really want to learn more about football, my suggestion: get Twitter, DM Felix or myself. We will happily kind of walk you through this. You want to learn more about college football, NFL. I mean, it's a fun game. There's a lot of differences between that and rugby, but it's not hard to get into. I guarantee you within an afternoon, we could get you into college football, NFL, and you'll be good to go. We can help you get into a league next year if you want. Just or send us an email, campstocanton@gmail.com. We'll help you out.
Yeah, we will, or we won't. This was a rough show. We'll get better, or we won't. We'll probably go live again before the weekend is over. Can't promise anything, but we will. Matthew Bruening there at Sports Fanatic MB on Twitter. I'm Felix Sharpe at Sharpe Review, Sharpe with an E on Twitter. And we'll see you all next time. Peace.